Hello everybody and welcome back to how I would have remade the DCEU, and I'm going to go ahead and just assume you've seen the first 4 phases and understand that this is a retooling of the existing DCEU, or at least the was existing DCEU. And if you haven't seen phases 1 through 4 or the entire first saga, there's a link in the description or up in the cards up here, so wherever it is, go ahead and click that if you haven't seen that already. But other than that, let's go and get going with phase 5. The passing of torches. So in 2030, we're going to get going with The Better Tomorrow. And this is going to be both Superman 4 and Supergirl 2. We're going to open with a young, depressed girl standing on the ledge of a tall building. And she's alone. No one is waiting for her at the ground. That is until a gentle voice speaks next to her. Superman. He talks and listens to her for a few minutes, never talking down to her. He never devalues her emotions or any of her feelings, and he helps her have a bright moment in a very dark day. After making sure the girl is safely on the ground, he hands her off to the right people, and Clark Kent meets with then his cousin, Kara Zor-El. And he has been showing her around Earth, introducing her to the world that had adopted him and his family that he had and her had helped save during the war against Darkseid. This family being his wife Lois Lane, his child John Kent, and his mother Martha Kent. While making some dinner with the Kents, Clark suddenly collapses. After taking him to a doctor, it is revealed that his brain had developed growths. If the doctors were even able to operate on him, there wouldn't be enough of his brain left to have a quality life. And this is reconfirmed with a meeting with the Justice League and their physicians who were more aware of his Kryptonian biology. And it is theorized by the League that due to his coma at the end of Superman 3 with his battle against Lex Luthor, then of course his death against Doomsday, the Mother Box revival, the anti-life equation being put on him, and then the life equation being put on him, in such a short time span, this causes his brain to basically go haywire and start growing tumors. So Clark Kent, Kal-El, Superman will die soon. We would then meet through flashbacks a young Manchester Black, a then child inspired by the heroics of Earth's defenders, especially Superman, though due to his rough childhood, he has developed less than moral tendencies and ethics and how he helps people. With the aid of his metagene granting him telepathy and telekinesis, he sets out with his team, the Elite, made up of members Coldcast, Menagerie, and Hat. The movie would continue with Manchester Black and the Elite looking to ruin Superman's legacy after Superman makes a public announcement about how the Elite are not affiliated with him nor the League due to their unnecessarily violent tendencies, and Kara would have her arc in this movie be about letting go of Kal and finding a new purpose in her life, which would eventually be following in Kal-El's footsteps and defend Earth as the next Kryptonian defender of Earth. And so by the end of this movie, Superman's legacy is defended against Manchester Black, and Kara succeeds Kal as the new Kryptonian defender of Earth. And the world looks onto a future without Superman. There is going to be a post-credit scene, and that Clark had allowed his body to be studied by scientists, and they start looking for a possibility to clone him. This would lead down the line to a version of Bizarro. Next up is Batman Broken. Things are relatively back to normal after the events of the Darkseid War for Batman and Robin, Tim Drake. Though after a routine night of patrol and Jim Gordon's retirement ceremony, Bruce and Tim return to the Batcave and Talia al Ghul is waiting for them. She has brought someone here with her, a child named Damian. She claims that Damian is Bruce's child and has been sent off to be trained by Batman. So the Al Ghul's plan in this entire movie is to have Damian eventually replace Bruce Wayne as Batman, so the symbol of Batman is under control of the Al Ghul's. Bruce notices that, on a side note, that Venom has reappeared on the streets after a noticeable dip in usage by the junkies, and it has reappeared in a way of a new player in Gotham's game of crime. Bane. And I'm going to take some inspiration from The Dark Knight Rises for Bane, just a little bit. So the inspiration that I'm taking is that Bane would have been trained by the League of Assassins, just like Batman, and his purpose is that he was a weapon that would eventually kill Batman. This would then allow Damian to take up the cape and cowl as the next Batman, under Ra's al Ghul's influence. But Bane goes AWOL, and So I'm also going to mention here, this was aided by the Court of Owls, who tried to do their version of this same plan in a later Batman project. So I wanted to at least plant that seed here. It's not going to be revealed in this movie, but that is the subtext to how Bane goes AWOL and escapes. So the Court of Owls are a mystery player in this game. Now the Al Ghouls are looking to expedite their plan for Batman's heir before Batman is possibly killed by Bane, and this nearly happens by the end of the movie. Batman's back is shattered against Bane's knee, paralyzing Batman / Bruce from the waist down. Bane is eventually defeated by the Bat family: Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Damian Wayne, Tim Drake, Alfred, and Barbara Gordon. And I want to have it known, Bruce Wayne is permanently disabled by Bane. When coming up with ideas for Phase 5, my hypothetical was, what happens to the Trinity? And I will just say right now, I wanted to come up with a different answer for each member: Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Superman, I thought All-Star Superman would be a perfect ending for him. For Batman, I figured he's going to go as long as he physically can. In the Batman Beyond series, the reason he stops being Batman is because a normal thug had gotten the jump on him and Bruce Wayne had to resort to a gun. The moment he had to resort to a gun, he's like, it's over. And that was because of his age. So in my hypothetical, Ben Affleck would have been playing the character for about 15 years. And I wanted to play with the thought of, what if Ben Affleck wanted to retire the character? What is the best way to write Batman out, so to speak? So permanently disabling, I felt like, was the best way without having to resort to killing the character. There is a post-credit scene for Batman Broken, and that is Bane in Arkham Asylum will be later killed by Ra's al Ghul / Ra's al Ghul's minions for ruining his plans. So Bane is gone. Next up is Wonder Woman Majesty. An ancient power has been released the moment Darkseid was vaporized by the Justice League and Company, the daughter of an Amazon, Myrina, and new god himself, Darkseid, Grail. Her parentage came from that fact that her mother hated Darkseid so much that she had a child with him in hopes that her child would be powerful enough to defeat him. She was also raised on the belief that the Amazons were making a mistake in hiding themselves and not being present in the world of man. Though when Darkseid heard of Grail's existence, he had her imprisoned, and now that Darkseid's gone, she has been freed and intends to finish her mother's vision in revealing / sharing the location of Themyscira with the rest of the world. This is not dissimilar to the entrance style of Hela in Thor Ragnarok, with Odin dying and then Hela showing up. It's a very similar process here. After the war against Darkseid is completed, Diana officially returns to Themyscira for the first time to attend her mother Hippolyta's funeral. Remember, Hippolyta was killed by Steppenwolf in Justice League Apocalypse / Justice League 3, my version of Infinity War. Since the Amazons are nearly immortal, an heir wasn't prepared, and as the only living descendant of Hippolyta, Diana is supposed to be the queen of the Amazons, though she's unsure if she is the best candidate. This is about when we have the first meeting between Diana and Grail, and this is going to be a very similar dynamic between these two characters as it was with the T'Challa and Killmonger in the first Black Panther movie, where Grail's vision isn't wrong, it's her methods in realizing that vision. Later in the movie, we'll actually also see Wonder Woman save a teenage Amazon, or at least by our normal human appearances and maturity standards, this is a teenager named Donna from a dangerous fire made by Grail. And this is going to be Donna Troy, another young Amazon, not unlike how Diana used to be when she was younger. Wonder Woman would have to kill Grail by using her own scythe. I hope I pronounced that weapon correctly. That was another quote-unquote god killer, like what she believed her sword to be in Wonder Woman 1 / World War 1, but also was / who she ends up being. The resolution of this movie is that Diana would retire as a superhero in the world of man and become the new queen and leader of the Amazons, and focus all of her attention on her new queenly duties. And then she would then ask Donna in private if she would be interested in following her footsteps as an Amazonian hero in the world of man. Donna agrees and sets off for her future. In the post-credit scenes, Diana didn't leave Donna with nothing to go on when she approaches the world of man either. She left an address and a name of a group to join: the Teen Titans. Now, starting in 2031, Flash 4. And I also want to make it known, the possible title Flash Forward did go across my brain many times. I didn't go with it. I just want to let you know that the thought was there. Wally isn't dead. The line from Hal Jordan burns in the mind of Barry Allen. Barry would be paranoid and restless at the thought of his partner, friend, and family still alive somehow after all this time. Barry would be spending his days researching the Speed Force and going back in time, rewatching Wally's death over and over like it were game film. Iris and Bart, who's now about 8 years old, are also grieving Wally's death and contemplating Hal's message. Ultimately, Barry's family tries to help him move on from his paranoia and from Wally. I'll also have it be known right here that this movie isn't going to be like your normal superhero movie. It's going to be more person versus self rather than person versus person. And so this would be similar to how in like the 2023 Flash movie that we had was Ezra Miller. Regardless of what your opinion was of that movie, there's not going to be a super present villain throughout the majority of this movie. It's just going to be Barry struggling with his obsession, his deteriorating mental health. And it's that much more apparent when you realize and remember that it's because of Barry that Wally is even a speedster to begin with from Flash 2 with the events with Mirror Master. The climax of the movie would be Barry sees that Wally had somehow gone so fast during the battle against Darkseid and Justice League Apocalypse that he went beyond time travel. It is literally inside the Speed Force itself. Barry then grapples with this thought before eventually, and after counsel with other Justice Leaguers, say a paralyzed Bruce Wayne, going into the Speed Force itself. Here, time works very differently, and Wally seems to not have aged a day. But he is anything but calm. He is being chased by a silhouette. This is the Black Racer. Barry would eventually sacrifice himself to the Black Racer to save Wally. And the finale would take a cue from Avengers Endgame with a final message written by Barry to his family, Wally, Iris, again, Bart, and his now newborn daughter, Nora. He talks about how much he has learned from being a Flash husband and father, and that he will always love his family now and forever. In the post-credit scenes, Wally notices that Bart had begun showing signs of being a speedster and decides to try to start training him, and also introduces him to the idea of the Teen Titans. Next up, Mr. Miracle. This is going to be a movie focusing on Scott Free and Big Barda settling in on Earth, as well as showing off their younger years in the orphanage with Granny Goodness. Scott's first job was working with an accomplished escape artist, Thaddeus Brown, whose stage name was Mr. Miracle. Brown, though, is later murdered, and Scott assumes the name of Mr. Miracle to honor his friend. And when Brown dies, Martian Manhunter comes to help Barda and Scott through their loss. This is when we learn more about the main villain, Dr. Destiny, or John D. He suffers from nightmares of the Unity and the suicide of his mother and seeks a power to help him control these fears. He studies the past recordings of heroes and villains on Earth and learns of a story in 1984 involving Wonder Woman and a con man, Maxwell Lord. Apparently, Lord had absorbed the power of an item called the Dreamstone, and that granted people their deepest wishes. This became Dee's big prize, and guesses since Lord had renounced his wish 47 years ago, then the Dreamstone should have reformed and be available to use. Dee eventually finds the Dreamstone and makes the wish that eventually grants him reality-altering and dream-manipulating powers. Though, like with Cheetah and with anybody who made a wish with that back in Wonder Woman 84, it takes their most valuable traits, in this case, John Dee's morality. This is wherein the crimes by Destiny grow, and Scott, Barda, and Jean try to put out the fires, so to speak, and stop Destiny. Destiny eventually traps Scott, Barda, and Jean in a false reality where they have everything that they ever wanted, though Destiny is also absorbing their life force while this happens. Scott is the one to eventually free himself from this mental prison by realizing that the Barda that he was talking to wasn't actually acting the way that she normally does, and using the real Barda as his anchor to reality, comes back and gets the leg up on Destiny, freeing Barda and Jean in the process, and the three destroy Dr. Destiny and also then the Dreamstone, once and for all. This is going to be an intended limited series that will be literally the show from 2019, Swamp Thing. This will be intended to be, like I said, a limited series. This was a show that was supposed to get season after season, but it was canceled after the first. I'm just going to say right now, obviously, there's some casting problems because Manda Xanadu does appear in this series, though it's not Naomi Harris. Again, this is taking place in my universe in 2031. I'm not going to predict who's going to be a big name in 2031 to play a lot of these characters. So take it very loosely that I will be taking the plot from this Swamp Thing show, intending it to be a limited series, so it's going to be a bit more conclusive. It's not going to leave you on a cliffhanger. It's going to be exactly what it should be. And I will also note that in the post-credits, Xanadu talks to Alec Holland / Swamp Thing about possibly teaming up with other quote-unquote friends, referring, of course, to the Justice League Dark. And now to open up 2032, I have my first show. Now, I just did say that Swamp Thing was going to be a limited series, but this is going to be a different type of show than I've done in the past. This is going to be an intended season after season show for the Bat Family. This will be the only exception with the Bat Family show, where this first season will be probably about an 8 to 10 episode count, a very streamlined story. All later seasons will be intended to be like 20 episodes, have filler, be able to show off more villains in Batman's Rogues Gallery, because there's just so many to choose from. Now we can really focus on using a lot of those other great villains. Again, this season is going to be the exception. It's going to be like a long movie because the story is going to be the battle for the cowl. After Bruce is forcibly retired as Batman, there is a power struggle within Gotham, and the Bat Family try to preserve and continue the legacy of the Batman. All players are fighting for either to become the next Batman or to stay far away from that dark persona, but are pulled in anyways to help protect it. The main players in this quote-unquote battle for the cowl are Jason Todd and Damian Wayne, who want to abuse the power and persona of the Batman for their own personal agendas. Again, Jason is very verbatim what I just said. Damian is doing this for the name of the Al Ghouls. There's also the Talon from the Court of Owls, who wants to have the symbol of Batman under the court's control. Then you have Dick Grayson and Tim Drake, who are really out to protect the symbol of Batman. Dick, however, understands that he shouldn't be the one to take over as Batman. He will have an episode or two where he has preemptively taken a suit and had gone out on patrol to try to preserve the image of the Batman, though he 100% hates it. At about a mid-season finale, Ra's and Talia al Ghul would both die, and Damian would struggle with his purpose now that they are gone. With some words of wisdom from Bruce, and as well as Jason Todd, he would later agree to become the next Robin, and without any ill intentions. The penultimate episode would also see Talon kill Alfred after a raid in Wayne Manor gone wrong. After Jason and Damian had put their egos and desires aside, they join Dick and Tim as the four Robins defend their home against the Court of Owls. By the end of the show, Tim will have earned the trust of his family and become the next to don the cape and cowl, while taking Bruce's own son Damian to be his Robin, finally putting an end to the Court of Owls. In the post-credit scenes, Tim is working with Bruce on designing his own suit. This would take inspiration from Terry McGinnis's Batman Beyond, with a black and red color scheme, but keeping with the classic Batman gear. So it's going to be kind of like this missing link between the original Batman suit and a more sleek Batman Beyond suit. To close out 2032, I have Dr. Fate. The ancient Lords of Order are in a cyclical battle against chaos. One of the many tools in their toolbox is imbuing humans with powers and abilities. One of these cases is a man whose background is shrouded in mystery and will be later known as the Gray Man. He has been imbued with the ability to tap into ambient dream energy of people who are on the brink of death. In the 1920s, Kent Nelson and his father Sven are archaeologists exploring ancient Mesopotamia, and on their dig they discover a chamber of an ancient god, Nabu. Among the trinkets, treasure, and items in the chamber is a golden helmet and an Ankh/amulet. Kent reaches out for the helmet, and once he touches the helmet, it fuses with him and a gas then spills into the chamber, unfortunately killing his father. Over the next section of the movie, Kent will learn how the history and the power of being with the god Nabu and Dr. Fate, kind of taking a page from the Moon Knight show in Marvel. He would also then have run-ins with the Gray Man, who is making an army of Gray Men with his abilities. Now, although the Lords of Order intended the abilities for the Gray Man to be an honor and a blessing, he has taken it as a curse. He has begun to experience the world muted of all sensations. He's only seeing in shades of gray. He's unable to hear the beauty in music. The Gray Man is eventually defeated by Dr. Fate when they meet with the Lords of Order, and the Lords explain their intentions of the abilities to be an honor and a blessing rather than a punishment. The Gray Man begs the Lords to strip him of this power. The Lords are willing to grant this wish, though it would also take his own life in the process. He agrees. Kent then returns to the university where he works and tries to move on with his life as both an archaeologist and a superhero. And in the post-credits scene, Kent discovers Felix Faust and ends up getting sucked into his own amulet. This keeps him in a suspended animation until he is eventually released. And now the last year of Phase 5, 2033, Green Arrow and Black Canary. This is going to be a story similar in format to the first Deadpool, where our main heroes are going to start out as experienced characters, and then we get told their story through flashbacks. And the movie would start by seeing Green Arrow and Black Canary working on patrol early in their crime-fighting careers, and then running into each other, recognizing and immediately embracing each other. Oliver has been back for a little bit, not a whole lot, so Dinah, of course, knew that he was back. Obviously, Oliver had no idea that Dinah had been out as the Black Canary. While on a date, the couple exchanged their stories over the past couple of years. And we also learned what happens to Oliver when he was missing. So Dinah would already know this, but for the sake of the audience, the story with Oliver in this version is that he went missing before the Unity. While out on that island, the Unity is formed and everyone, including himself, perishes. Though, because of the sacrifice of Hal Jordan and Sinestro with Entity, they are revived. And with this revival, it causes a worldwide sense of community to form. So there are extra boats out potentially looking for missing people, and coincidentally, this helps out Oliver get found. On Dinah's side of things, she was born of the metagene that allowed her to do her canary cry, and her mother was a non-powered vigilante as well. Dinah wanted nothing to do with following in her mother's footsteps. That is until after Oliver went missing and the Unity was formed and everyone was revived. With that extra sense of community, she wanted to help out with also the extra level of chaos that was coming with the revival. So she then takes up her mother's name of Black Canary and uses her canary cry to help make the world a better place. Continuing with Oliver's story, when he came back after learning how to use the bow and arrow for a little bit while on the island, he is then trained by his friend's father, Arthur King, who was in a circus, was an archer in that circus dubbed the Magician, who did a lot of trick shots. While on their way out of the restaurants, all caught up on our backstories, Oliver gets pickpocketed by a young teenager, Roy Harper. Over the movie, we also learned Roy's past, where he was adopted by a Navajo tribe after his father was killed trying to save the reservation. This is from the villain known as Merlin. While under the care of the Navajo tribe, he was trained in combat and how to protect himself, though the tribe was then killed and he is now alone. Oliver and Dinah then offer him a place to stay, although temporarily, but this eventually becomes permanent and they take Roy in as a adopted son. The movie would then progress as Oliver, Dinah, and Roy, who is dubbed Speedy, meet a shady character, a female by the name of Shiva, who is trying to help destroy the remainder of the League of Assassins. She'd be handled in this movie similarly to Cable in Deadpool 2, where she'll be the opponent for the heroes and main kind of present villain through the first part of the movie until the main villain is revealed later. And eventually the team learn from Shiva, an eyewitness, Roy, and that Oliver's trainer, Arthur King, is Merlin, a mercenary trained by the League of Assassins after his circus went down, and the culprit behind Roy's family's death. The three then would go into the climax, which would result in Merlin's death by the hands of Lady Shiva. In the post-credit scenes, we get that Lady Shiva talks to her daughter, Cassandra Cain, that there is another member of the League of Assassins out in Gotham, the Robin, Damian Wayne. Next up is another show similar to Bat Family. This is going to be The Green Lantern Corps Inheritance, Season 1. It would be inspired by various cop dramas like NCIS, Criminal Minds, CSI, The Rookie, while continuing the stories of the Green Lantern Zavoa. This would be a show that would get somewhere in the range of about 20 episode seasons at about 45-minute episodes, would have some filler episodes here and there spread around with a connected story that'll build into a grand finale for each season, focusing on different aspects of being a lantern. This season would focus on the inheritance of the rings and the pressure on the rookies to succeed. Jon Stewart, Guy Gardner, and Kilowog would be the three returning Green Lanterns, with Kyle Rayner, Simon Baz, and Jessica Cruz being introduced alongside other alien Green Lanterns. The show's first couple of episodes would focus more on setting up these new heroes when new evil presents itself, Volthoom. The season's primary story would be against Volthoom, who the Guardians had him be their first attempt at a lantern officer. It's before the idea of lanterns only getting one aspect of the emotional spectrum, and Volthoom had been given all emotions, like a White Lantern, though completely unhinged with his power unchecked. The Green Lanterns must employ the help of the Blue Lantern Corps of Hope, led by Saint Walker, as well as the Indigo Tribes of Compassion, to be able to defeat Volthoom. And to close out Phase 5, Justice League Dark, Forever Evil. In ancient times, all was good in the world, and as there was no evil, corruption, or war. To test humanity's morality, Zeus gave humans Pandora's box, a box that possibly contained everything you desire if you were to open it, though Zeus forbade humanity to do so. A man by the eventual name of Felix Faust was the buzzkill for humanity and opened it due to curiosity. This unleashes a being Blight, as well as the 7 deadly sins, the exact same ones we see in the first Shazam movie. Faust, over the years, afraid of Blight, had started gathering as much power as he could. He would con the greatest mystical minds and would continually offer up others' souls in place of his own to save his own skin. This would repeat over thousands of years until the leader of Kor, which is an ancient African city, the leader Nomo, had him banished to another plane of existence. Fast forward to the present day, wannabe magician and madman Deccan Drash, I hope I said that right, stumbles on the connection between the dimensions and sets Faust free. Faust then possesses Drash's body. It also be noted that when Faust returns, he is much weaker than when he was banished. When Faust continues his mission to defeat Blight, he kidnaps souls again to start growing his power, though this gets the attention of Madame Xanadu, and she then tries to gather the JLD again. Here we get the montage of Constantine, Zatanna, Deadman, Raven, all getting rallied by Madame Xanadu and Shade the Changing Man. As the team goes into an old lair of Faust after one of his sacrifices, they notice that he had to make a quick getaway, leaving many of his trinkets. This is because Blight had caught up to him and he had to make a quick run for it. Among the trinkets was an Ankh. Constantine and Deadman investigate the Ankh and start fiddling with it. Upon doing so, this releases a man dressed out of time, Kent Nelson. Nelson instantly goes for the helmet and becomes Dr. Fate, and we get a fun fight between the JLD and Fate. Once they all realize they're on the same team, Kent fills him in on what Faust is and the danger he possesses, and the existence of Pandora's box and Blight. While this is all happening, they learn from a mixture of newscasts and Xanadu's visions that Faust had learned how to absorb the life force from plant life. This is when they piece together that Faust is looking to kill Blight. Though Blight being a metaphysical being and cannot be killed, their battle would simply just result in the Earth being destroyed. Xanadu looks to recruit another member who would take a new stake in this war, Swamp Thing. The climax begins with a battle between Faust and the JLD, which pretty much ends with a stalemate until Blight and the 7 deadly sins show up. Turns out, Blight couldn't just exist either. Like Faust, he needed to possess a body, this being the body of Chris Esperanza. I know we don't know who that is, but this is a surprise to Xanadu and her confidant, her mystery confidant, the Phantom Stranger. For those who don't know, the Phantom Stranger has multiple different versions of his origin. I am using the one where he is Judas from the story of Christ, who sold Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. He is on a mission to redeem his soul and must aid humanity for 1,000 years for each piece of silver. So if you do the math, that is 30 total thousand years. Esperanza was a friend of the Phantom Stranger who wasn't resurrected correctly from the Unity, and so his conflicted soul was perfect for Blight to take control. The Phantom Stranger then takes Blight to the border of heaven with the rest of the Justice League Dark, and here the Phantom Stranger tries to get the Presence to intervene and defeat Blight, though he does not answer. Blight terrifyingly says that Chris chose him rather than the other way around, and that this is how all things should be. He then kills Faust right then and there, and we watch Faust's soul get sucked into hell. During the next phase of the battle, there is a moment when the Phantom Stranger as a guide, Raven as an empath, and Deadman with possession all connect their minds with their target, Chris/Blight. Here, the battle can end with Chris overcoming the power of Blight after the JLD weakens the spirit itself within Chris. Blight is then banished to the collective unconscious, and Blight's power will be spread so thin that it won't be able to affect anything or anyone else the same way again for at least a very long time. There is going to be a post-credit scene in this movie. The Justice League Dark returned to Faust's old lair where they found Dr. Fate, and among the notes, trinkets, and paraphernalia, there are stories of the spirits of God's wrath, the Spectre. And thank you all for watching. If for whatever reason you haven't watched that Saga 1 video and you made it to the end of this one, go ahead and leave a card on screen or have a link somewhere here for you to click on to get to that entire first saga. And yeah, I just really want to thank you all for watching. And this has been a massive passion project of mine over the course of this entire decade so far, of the 20s. And so I'm really excited. Phase 6 is on its way. I'm currently writing it right now, so I'm really, really excited. Say hi to Oliver. He's kind of getting a little restless. Other than that, thank you all so much for watching. If you made it to this part of the video, I mean, you probably like the content, so I'd suggest hitting the subscribe button. If you have any other ideas or let me know your thoughts in general about this universe in the comment section below. But other than that, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.